Hi everyone, this is Eric Wilkuski with JOBLO.com and Arrow on the Head, and I'm very pleased today to be talking to a movie legend, one of the greatest makeup designers of all time, Kevin Yagher. Hi Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you.
Now Kevin's latest work.
By the way, this is not normal for me. This is my pandemic year.
You've got your entourage behind you.
Light, so I was like shocked when I thought, oh well.
That is awesome. Now, Kevin's latest work can, of course, be seen in Bill and Ted Face the Music, but anyone who's been watching movies for the past 30 years or so has seen his work, responsible for giving us so many famous faces like Chucky and the Crypt Keeper, Freddy Krueger and the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, Jason and Friday Part 4, Starship Troopers, the list goes on. And we'll try to get to some of that stuff, too. But first, let's talk Bill and Ted 3. I mean, just talk about how cool it was to finally get the call where, you know, they finally got the green light after so many years, and what it was like. I
don't know if you heard any of the talk about it, but the first time I heard about it, I mean, there's rumors. So we closed out Bogus Journey, the second film in the franchise, and then we talked about it. It was going to be a third, and it just kind of dragged. I don't know what happened. Maybe I don't know how Bogus Journey did box office wise, but they stalled out. And then about over 10 years ago, I get a call from Alex Winter, who plays Bill from Bill and Ted. And he's executive producing it. And he gave me a script, Face the Music. That was the title back then. And we talked, and I did a budget breakdown for him. And we went on about, a couple months in just talking back and forth. And then the whole thing got shelved. It just kind of disappeared, it went into a holding pattern, which so many things did. Sleepy Hollow, which I did, had the same thing. It went on for years, and then suddenly 5 years just sat dormant, and that happens a lot. I mean, even Steven Spielberg movies get pushed, he says, up to 15 years sometimes. And then this one came about, and then I got a call again this time 10 years later from producer Scott Krug. And I had done an excellent adventure. I did a little tiny thing in it. I did a couple of cavemen in it for the very end of the sequence. And I got to go to Arizona, and that's where I met Keanu and Alex for the first time. And then on Bogus Journey, there was a ton of stuff, and they called me in for that. And then this one came up, and Scott called me again and said, we got a director, Dean Pariseau, we want you to meet him. Talked about, roughly about the stuff that was in it. And then I was going to do all the makeup effects and on the show, and that's how it all started. And we were meeting at coffee shops at the beginning, Dean's house. There was no official production office or anything like that. So that's how it all began, And when I met Dean, he was just the nicest man. Directors are funny because some of them are insecure, some of them are hyper, some of them are mean, But Dean was just clever, funny, super sweet, super supportive, and that's how we kind of started off. We had a great meeting, and the rest is history, as they say, but no pun intended.
Now, there's several cool makeup effects throughout the entire movie, but I mean, the main three are Bill and Ted in prison, where they're incredibly, insanely buff. Then there's sort of middle-aged, paunchy Bill and Ted. Yeah. And then there's, of course, old Bill and Ted. I mean, we don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't seen it yet, but they're, basically in their late 80s, 90s at one point in the movie. Talk about the challenges of all three of those incredible makeup effects.
And I was also going to do Dennis the Robot, so I got hired to do. There were demons in it that I was doing. There's a cave woman, Paleolithic woman named Crom, and we ended up just going with a simple makeup. Bill Corso is the department head, and he ended up doing all the set work, with other things, all the Jimi Hendrix makeups and all these other things. He had tons of characters to do, Washington, George Washington, all that stuff. So, but they did a simpler makeup. But I had all this stuff on my plate, and it was a show that had a lot of financial challenges. So it was just one of those movies that a lot of money was coming from different places. If you notice the credits, there's a lot of executive producers on it because there's a lot of people who participate. It's almost like a Kickstarter campaign, where everyone was putting in. So it was just getting that initial money was really tough to get that first initial money, to get going. And I always, you bid, and they usually give you a little startup money, something to start hiring crew and things like that. And that just got stalled. I was just doing nothing but you know, the old age makeup designs and stuff. And by the way, I don't think you're spoiling it for people. I mean, if they know anything about Bill and Ted, it's time travel.
Yeah.
So they basically go, you know, it's pretty well common knowledge that they're trying to get or write the song that saves the world. That was set up in Bogus Journey. So they spend their time going to try to get it from themselves at different times in life. And then they find themselves, oh, this is a path that we went down that didn't turn out so well for us. And now we're in prison, but we are the prison leaders, you know, and then they do, you know, they have these, you know, I'll get into how that was just a nightmare to shoot. But so they just go through different time periods. And one of the time periods is they end up going into as far into the future as they can, and they see themselves as old men. So that's not that, you know, big of a spoiler. It's not going to spoil the story. And there's a story point that I won't bring up of, you know, that's a nice kind of reveal of what happens. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I did all these things. I'm going to show you some stuff here that you'll see. And so if you don't want to know anything,
yeah,
turn down the volume. But yeah, you know, the big thing for me was the biggest thing right off that I was more nervous about than anything else was Dennis the Robot. Because when you do a robot, they have to be like you're building a car. I mean, cars are sculpted. They really physically are sculpted, you know, and now they probably print them out. But, you know, back in the day, they would actually use clay and sculpt out the model, and then they would refine them into fiberglass pieces. No one really knows this, but cars have to be sculpted and designed, you know. And the same thing with the robot, you know. So there's lots of parts, and it's a, you know, it's a crew. If you look at Steve Wang, who, you know, ended up giving the job to, his crew is like, you know, 30 or 40 people. And I really wanted to do it, but at the same time, I didn't want to sacrifice my work on the old age makeups and the other makeups because they were more exciting for me, you know, personally, but also they were on Bill and Ted. So I knew that they're the two leads, you know, why not do that? So it came down to just getting money. It was a slow start. So I ended up kind of panicking a little bit. And I thought, listen, I need to find a replacement for me for the robot, but I have the guy. There's 3 people I was considering. One was Stan Winston's old guys, John Rosengrant and the other guys there at Stan's, which is now called Legacy. And then there was Jose Fernandez, who does all the superhero suits. He does everything, you know, the Spider-Mans and all that. He doesn't do that one, but he has, you know, Batman and does all these Superman superhero suits. But then Steve Wang, who had worked for me years ago. Steve was famous for working at Stan Winston's and helping develop and sculpt the Predator. So he has a monster following, you know, he's a big guy. And so I really wanted Steve. And so I asked, you know, presented this to producers and the director, who immediately turned white, realizing I wasn't going to do it. You know, they're kind of, who do you want? No, wait, you know, they kind of panicked. And I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I won't let the ball drop, and I'll make sure that, you know, whoever I choose will get the job done. I'll stand behind it. So I really pushed to have Steve do it, and they went with Steve, and he did a fantastic job. So that was on my plate at first. And that was the first sort of thing I had to get either kind of unload and get rid of, so that I could focus on the other things. And then you know, there were the old age makeups. I know my way around an old age makeup, so I wasn't too nervous about that. Keanu, you know, and Alex is really into makeup. I can't say the same for Keanu. He likes it, he enjoys it, but Alex is really like into, I mean, I did Granny Preston makeup on him for part 2, you know, and he was so into that. And he was great as an old woman, so I knew he'd be great, you know, as this character, this old man. And then, you know, so we just had to make sure that, you know, Keanu, his time was limited. You know, he was off doing a John Wick or something. So we, you know, got him in the shop. We took both their life casts, you know, and that was sort of fun. We did it old school. You know, a lot of times now you scan people and just print out a copy of the actor. I don't have a scanner, and I didn't have time. And there's a lot of time element to breaking that down and putting the pieces back together once you scan them. So it was just easier to me to do old school. I got the pieces and it was ready to sculpt within a day. So that was good. But then, so we started on these muscle suits you could see behind me. And this is Ted, this is Keanu, and this is Alex. This is Bill's super suit. They're basically, you know, the challenge behind that was making him lightweight, but also give him translucency, like skin. So the old school way would be foam latex, and you'd have to whip up a ton these big Hobart mixers with, you know, this much. You know, I had to make 2 or 3 of those just to inject the suits, and then you get this foam suit, which is nice, but it has funny wrinkles. It all, you know, it has this rubber to it. But it's like, wait, so then we have to painstakingly remove a layer of the skin and then seal in with silicone. So we end up putting it back in the mold and injecting silicone so it goes on the outside, but we have to seal the foam off. It's very complicated. And it worked the first time, which we had a lot of, with Chucky, I did all his skins that way. And what it does is it gives you, the bulk of the suit is foam latex, which is like a pillow, my pillow, you know, or whatever. It's like that kind of thing. It's just a foamy thing, and it's very lightweight and very comfortable, and it absorbs sweat. But the outer layer is made of silicone, and that gives you the translucency. It looks most like skin. It'll paint up really nice, and you can intrinsically color it to a flesh tone, and then the appliances are done the same way for the old makeup and stuff like that. So that was, we shot in unbelievable heat in New Orleans. It was July, mid-July, so it's super hot. The humidity must have been 95 to 100. I don't know what it was. And these guys are in these suits, start out about, I'd say 20, 25 pounds maybe, and end up filling with sweat, and they're maybe 35, 40 pounds by the time. And they're just super hot. I mean, there's nothing you can do when you close someone's body in. And we had bald caps on them,
right, and
they have shaved heads. And, you know, then Keanu had an extra like mohawk thing going down the center, and then he had a huge beard on. You know, and I just thought for sure one of them was going to either pass out, flip out, punch me, whatever. And these guys were just super, I mean, the whole time. I mean, you know, they both had back issues. I think they've both had operations in their back for different reasons. I think Keanu's gotten a motorcycle accident years ago. So they didn't have great backs, and these things are heavy. So, you know, and Alex wore a back brace underneath the suit just to help him. You know, he said it really saved his back. So it was just, and thank God we actually only shot them in those suits one day, believe it or not. We shot
really?
In one day, just to say, can we just busted our butts and to get it done. And then we had to take the suits back, believe it or not, and we had to clean them and get them ready for their doubles, because again, this budget was low, so we had one suit, and that was it.
Oh man,
we had time to make a second suit for the stand-ins. So then when we did the reversal, we're over the shoulders of these guys onto Alex and Keanu. We put these other guys in suits. So what we did was we took them back to the makeup trailer. We had to soak them in vodka, which is a trick to basically kill all bacteria. You just literally, you buy cheap vodka, like gallons of it. You put it in a big tub, and you stick these suits in. We just like the old school way of just squeezed out these things back and forth. It took about, I don't know, an hour just to squeeze them, soak them. Then we had to drain them, twist them, hang them up. And by the morning, they were mostly dry. It was pretty amazing. Wow. And then they didn't smell, nor are they passing on any kind of disease to the new guys wearing them. So that's how it was just hellacious 2 days. It was like the hottest place I've ever. It was I think the most difficult set day I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that the most difficult? It sounds like it must have been the most difficult effect in the film, or was the old age makeup?
I think the old age makeups were more tedious in the construction, you know, because I'll show you, for example, like everything had to be. I'll show you this in a second, but all the appliances. This is Bill's forehead appliance. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But, it's a thin layer of silicone. Like it's actually encapsulated between two layers of plastic. And there's silicone in between, and it gives us this really kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but it gives it a real skin-like texture. And then all the hair has been pre-punched into it. So that, and there's 7 or 8 pieces per guy, plus hands. We did hands as well. So that becomes more of just a nightmare in prepping. You know, the sculpture then has to be broken down. It's a big, long process. I mean, it took about, I think, 2 months just to get all that stuff done. Wow. And then when you go to set, the set wasn't terribly, I had Bill Corso helping me do Alex, and Dennis Lydiard was helping him, our key makeup artist. And then Stephen Kelly, who is Keanu's personal, also knows stuff about prosthetics. So he and I tag teamed on Keanu, and that went pretty smoothly. I mean, we had the makeups done in like under 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
We had somebody else doing the hands. So that wasn't too bad, but I, to me, I just enjoy doing old age makeup. So just a kick. But I guess this was pretty much the toughest thing. We also built which I don't have out here. I'll have to get that next time, but a fat belly for Keanu. So you had mentioned that they run into each other, and they're at a house that looks like they're successful, and they tell them
Yeah.
their earlier selves or younger selves or their whatever that, hey, you know, we've written a song, look how successful we are. But but then when they leave, the guys, as they're leaving, they run into Dave Grohl, you know,
Yeah.
it ends up being his house, and so they end up running back into the house, and they see themselves undressing, and that's where Keanu's gut just, you know, comes out. Alex takes off his wig, and he's got this, you know, he's got this bald head,
Yeah.
comb over, you know, that's gone wrong. So yeah, it was those are kind of like fun makeups, and I ended up doing that stuff earlier. They got that done out of the way, made the wig and the bald cap for Alex, and then the belly pad for Keanu, and then I sent that off, and the makeup people there took care of it.
One thing, I don't want to criticize you, but I think what's inaccurate is that, you know, Keanu's not going to look like that when he's 90
You know,
years
everybody
old.
says that. They say, well, you know, unless some gene kicks in and he starts to age quickly, he's going to look the same. Yeah,
He's going to look like he does now, which is like about 30.
yeah, totally.
Are those guys the same as the same guy, you know, more or less the same guys you met all those years ago?
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, you know, they've gotten, both of them gotten smarter, meaning just as you get more information in life, I think, as, you know, wiser, I guess you'd say. Alex went on to become a really big commercial director in England, and now he's doing documentaries, which are fantastic. Did one called Star Kids. I think it's on Netflix, but it's great about, you know, it's got Henry Thomas from E.T., you know, played Elliot in it, and all these stars that were started out as kids and then eventually became adults, and whether they transitioned into adult acting or not, you know, and then, you know, all kinds of things, you know, challenges on, you know, running into sexual harassment and all these things. It's a beautiful documentary. Check it out if you can. But so he's been doing that. So he hasn't been acting as much, but Keanu, of course, went on from one thing to the other and became this uber superstar, and has, you know, now the John Wick and the Matrix things and stuff like that. So, and he hasn't changed. He's still, he's very quiet. He's a shy kind of person to himself. Doesn't talk a whole lot, you know, in the chair. He wasn't when he was here. You know, he's still doing it, man. I'm surprised at his age, because he's 55 or 56 now, and still kicking, you know, and doing karate chops or whatever he's doing, you know.
Amazing specimen.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they got to do this, because it really is fun. I was a little, I won't lie, I was a little wary, and I was very pleasantly surprised by how good and good natured it is, this new one.
Yes.
You think they're going to do another? You have
I don't know. I don't see how. I mean, you know, as far as story wise, it seems, and you know, Andy, how it can possibly go on to do another one, and kind of wraps up everything. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think I don't know if it was Keanu, like, was in love with the idea of doing one. You know, like the third one, like kind of, that was in my past. I'm John Wick now. I got a beard. I don't want to shave it. That was a big thing. We didn't think he was going to shave it. He just like, I don't think I want to shave it. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he was like, I think I'm going to keep it. And we all went, no, you know, Ted's got to have, he can't be, I don't know. It's just not Ted. Because they'll just see John Wick, mm-hmm. you know, as Ted. They'll just go. So he finally said, yeah, you're right. And so he had it. That was a big kind of, you got to be careful with any actor who's, especially someone who's made it as big as he has, because they'll build up, you know, whatever, they build up a following. People expect certain things, a certain look from them, and if they change it, you know, I mean, I'm sure people will be critical, like, oh, it doesn't look good with his beard, or someone said he looked like Snape from Harry Potter or something, or something like that. You know, like it looks different because he's got like the long hair, but without the beard. We haven't seen him like that in forever, right? Since probably one of the Matrix films. So, you know, and he was hesitant, and you don't want to act like you're pushing him or making him, or the director. No one gave him any pressure. We just let him figure it out. And we suggested, and then just said, I think it'd be more Ted. And, you know, people were saying, yeah, but we didn't push it. And on his own, he just said, yeah, I should shave it. So that's what we did.
That's awesome. Well, the movie turned out.
I wish he would have shaved it. Actually, we had to take his life cast for the old age makeup with the beard, because he wasn't sure at that point. That was months ahead of time. So I had to painstakingly take the cast, which is like a plaster stone, and I'd shave it all down and kind of guess at where his face would be, because it's, you know, it's pretty thick beard he had. It was even thicker than this. This is just a picture of him, but it was much thicker than this thing. And I had to guess it to get it down so I could build in the appliances on top of that. So that wasn't fun.
Well, it turned out so well, and that's out right now, theatrical and VOD.
Yes.
So now, I mean, we're in your studio. I'm geeking out. I already see the clown puppet from Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, that was an episode I directed called.
Yep.
Strung
Great
Along.
episode. Great episode. So I'm gonna leave it to you. I mean, show us some cool stuff, man.
I'll start again with as I'm gonna pick up if that's okay.
Oh yeah.
I gotta look over and see. So this again is the Bill and Ted muscle suits when I talked about, and then here these are each like we do a mock-up application on a cast of Keanu, and then I would pre-paint it. So this kind of gets us down and shows us that was Keanu and this is Alex.
Wow.
This shows us like where we're going to put spots and liver spots and all kinds of stuff, and kind of gives us an idea. So these are paint scheme tests. And then on here, I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah.
There's just some stuff that we did. It was an early demon design. Ended up being cut out of the film. This is that one
Yeah.
that pathetic bald cap look.
Yeah.
Design. This was his muscle suit look. Deciding to do his handlebar mustache. Right. Here was Keanu's prison look. Here.
Right.
Then some early robot. Let's see if I can get my camera on.
That's also, and the robot is like the most entertaining character in the movie, I think.
Yeah, he was so great. I was so happy that he came out the way he did. So pathetic and insecure. Yeah. These were some early designs that I did before I left the show. Then here over here are just some. This is like a sample of all the appliances that we did.
Wow.
So you can just see. There's things like here. Let's see. This right here. Can you see my hand? Yeah.
Yep.
That's the back of the head, and then the foreheads and hands over there, and then the wraparound cheek pieces in the background.
Wow.
Okay, now I'll show you the rest of the shop.
Oh, cool.
Spin around here. You recognize this character.
Man. Yes, I know that guy.
This was the original stunt Chucky from Child's Play 1, actually.
Now, how many Chuckies would be like in a movie? Like, how many did you have? Assortment of different dolls?
Oh yeah, we had insert legs, insert hands. We had, of course, lots of these dolls.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the carry-on good guy doll. We had six or eight of those. Just a side note, that's Christian Slater's head from Wind Talkers under the yeah, so we had tons of different parts. Between we had a servo Chucky, we had a kicking, screaming Chucky.
Right.
It was like probably 9 or 10 different parts and pieces for him.
Wow.
No, and I did all the way through Bride of Chucky. So I did 4 of the films.
Right.
This is from Face Off.
That's awesome. Oh man.
This is Nick Cage here, sans face.
Now you've worked with Nick Cage a handful of times.
Yeah, I also did a like an
adaptation, right?
Adaptation, yeah. And then Wind Talkers, we also
what's working with Nick like?
He's great. He's like, yeah, Kev, so good. What you're doing, man? I think you're gonna get an Academy Award. Stuff like that. But he's great. Both these guys were really super. This was John's.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome.
And that. And and all the hair again is very much like the Bill and Ted appliances. We punch all that in at literally one hair at a time.
That's crazy. That must be so time consuming.
It is. I mean, I we have full bodies. These guys only come up to about here, the waist.
Yeah.
But we had full body ones. And these were the inserts where the actual faces come off. So this is in the sequence. Of course, you recognize this guy.
I think so. Yeah. Which one is that?
This was actually from 2. This is my favorite one. I think it's a fan favorite as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess it's just I was early on and I made him smoother, and I kind of started getting too much detail later on, and I had to change part. I think in part part 3, Chuck Russell wanted to make him look more like Robert, like he was changing back so that we ended up doing a different design. And then in part 4, I went back to more closer to this one.
Okay.
It was kind of like this one with more detail. But this I did just as a display because it was in silicone, and back in the day we did it out of foam latex. So I wanted to give it more of a translucent look. It has a more realistic look.
And you also worked on Freddy's Nightmares as well, right?
Yes, I did the Freddy's Nightmares. Yeah, the first.
So, I mean, how many times do you think Robert has strapped on that makeup?
Oh, God, just on part 2, I did it 35 plus times.
Oh, man.
And we went to New York and did all this promotion stuff. You know, it was crazy. And so that was just on the first one I did. And I did 3 films with him, and then the series. So overall,
incredible.
It has to be, God, it has to be 1,000 times.
Yeah.
It has to be something like that. Overall, you know, everything's done. Okay, so here we got. Let me know if the reflection is.
No, that looks good.
This is all under glass, so. But that's the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, is that the mummy from Lower
That is,
Birth?
yeah. Also known as his mommy.
That's right, Mummy.
It was the Crypt Keeper's mother, and it was an episode that my brother Jeff I actually cast in as a Two-Faced man.
And that makeup was absolutely outstanding.
Well, it was great because there was a guy from China, and it was on it was on a TV show. I saw him, and he had a little face that he was born with that actually had a secondary mouth, and had a primitive brain and a lump of hair and an ear, and I don't think it had an eye, but it would, as he moved his mouth, it would move.
Oh wow!
Secondary mouth, and I took that idea and developed Enoch, you know, into the Two-Faced Man. But I gave him a little bit of an eyeball. So as my brother Jeff would move his mouth, the puppeteers would then, you know, mimic what Jeff was doing with his mouth and stuff.
So you get to torture your brother by putting him in the makeup chair for about 4 hours.
Totally. Yeah, totally. For all those times that he was jumping on me and beating me up when we were kids. And then down below you saw that there's a Coco clown
and the Donald O'Connor.
Yeah. Who played?
Now that must have been pretty cool getting him involved with that episode.
Oh yeah, I mean, I went to Dick Van Dyke first, and he turned it down. And then I went to oh my God, this guy, I forgot his name.
I can't tell who that is.
It'll come to me in a second. I have a blank every time. I'm on this keto-friendly diet, so
that's okay.
It makes me a little spacey.
Strange times for all of us.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went to him first, and then finally, and he turned it down, and then I got Donald O'Connor, so it was great. I mean, any of these guys are fantastic. I mean, Singing in the Rain, and he was the guy that jumped off the wall and did the flip. Yeah. These little guys, if you can see, were from Astronaut's Wife. I'll try to get an angle. This was, there we go.
That's
Charlize Theron and Johnny Depp have these little babies, and they start out as little tiny embryos, and then they get bigger and turn into little bigger embryos, but they're quite large.
Wow.
We had to make them big to animate them, you know, because they're normally they'd be like really tiny in a belly. Yeah. And they're seen in the movie so quickly it comes and goes.
That's awesome.
And this is Sleepy Hollow.
The tree.
Angle. Yeah.
Right.
An angle that you can see.
That's cool.
There's a spider in there, a real spider. See, see?
Oh.
They just become part of I don't know if you can see that. They become part of the display.
Now you were at one point going to direct Sleepy Hollow.
Yes.
Years before it got made. What was it like, sort of working on it, knowing you had almost directed it? I mean, was that a contentious issue or?
No, I mean, that was the whole idea. You know, I wrote it with Andy Walker, who did Seven. You know, the movie Seven, wrote that, and he was at my same agency. We met, got along. I pitched him my idea. We developed it. We went around town. Finally, it ended up with Scott Rudin over at Paramount, and that's where we wrote the script, and then it stalled out. The Crucible, somebody had made the Crucible at the time, and it was, I guess, it didn't do very well in the box office. So they thought that things of that time period weren't working. So they shelved
They're kind of different movies, but
So they shelved it for 5 years, and then Tim Burton found out about it and he called up and said, I want to do it. And I was like, well, I'm directing. It's one of those things. But with Kevin Yagher directing, not to talk about myself in third person, I think this is insanity. But with me directing, I'm insane. I'd get $2 million, you know, that would be it. And with Tim Burton, we got 60, and it's Tim Burton. So I can, you know, it's like, that's right up his alley. So I had him come over to the shop, and I showed him stuff like the face-off bodies, you know, because I was locked in my contract, had a great contract, and I was locked in to do all the effects. So he couldn't really get rid of me. I didn't want him to feel that he was obligated to use me. I wanted him to feel comfortable that, listen, I can do it. do the job for you. You know, he's used to working with Stan Winston and Rick Baker, and so, you know, here he has to, who's this guy? You know, I'd met him once before, but he was like, you know, I don't know, I just want to make him feel comfortable. So I showed him the stuff, and he's like, fine, great, as long as I can direct it. You know, he was happy to say yes to anything I said. So I stepped back, and they paid me off. I got paid off as a director. I got paid as I got to be a co-producer on it, and still got to do all the effects, and then finish doing some writing on it and stuff like that. And I still collect royalties from that movie. So, and it's a Halloween favorite now, which is a great.
It's a really fun movie. I mean, it really is. It's very cool. I love the atmosphere of it. The set design, of course, is amazing, and the makeup effects are fantastic. And you know, I was curious. You know, I was thinking about this, like in the 90s, it seemed like a lot of people were worried that, you know, CGI was just going to take over everything, you know, and it seemed like it was going that way for a while. And then now, you know, there's a whole new generation of movie fans who love practical effects, not just the old school people, but the new school people. And I'm just curious about your take on the fact that, you know, practical effects are still so beloved and still in high demand.
You know, you see CGI, it took over so many things. I mean, stop motion animation with Jurassic Park, you know. I was actually, funny, not to drop names, but I was in a meeting with Steven Spielberg. We were in his office, and I was talking about directing Small Soldiers, actually. So I had a meeting about that. And he had just gotten back from ILM and just saw the first test for Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs. He said, Kevin, wait till you see this. It's going to blow you away. It's a real dinosaur. It's a real dinosaur. I mean, I love Phil Tippett's work. He was talking, Phil ended up being the dinosaur, whatever, tech support or whatever. And he said, but it's stop motion, and it looks like stop motion, even with his techniques that he was using. You know, just this stuff is going to blow you away. So, you know, that it came about, you know, and it all kind of, it scared all of us at first, you know, when it came into play. And, you know, but then it was great for a while because people were still using it and kind of enhancing, you know, using practical stuff, and then having, you know, if you remember, even in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, Rick Baker did all these makeups, and they would take, you know, one of the lead gorilla, you know, actors, and he could only open his mouth so far, but then they would go back in and CGI and really open it up like a real gorilla could do. So it was enhancement, and that was brought us a lot more ideas. So writers were writing anything they wanted to because they knew CGI could handle it if we couldn't handle it. So it was a great period in there, and then it kind of just dropped away. Now they're still making, you know, I'm not doing them anymore, but they're still making, you know, the Child's Play films, you know, and so things like that are commercials. Always going to use practical effects, you know, anything low budget or commercials, because we can still do it cheaper. And you know, and it's really kind of cool for the actors. I mean, why didn't they do these old age makeups digital? They had the capability. Well, we didn't have the money, number one. And the actor, you know, I know it helped both these guys to be able to look in the mirror and play act, you know, instead of going you know, to the set with green dots all over your face, right? Yeah. Like some of the actors do nowadays. They could actually look in the mirror, and that's the challenge, is to make our stuff even better. If we get bad at what we do, then they're never going to do it. It's going to be a lost art. So we have to compete with CGI. So it brings our competition level up. There's another good thing, like, you know, the suits that we put on to save time, we left the seam, you know, right across the neck. So they just zip up the back, and the zipper line. We zipped up the back because we knew that we had to get these guys out of these suits in record time if they begin to pass out in this heat. And, you know, just to save hours of blending, we could have blended these things into the skin. We did do all the bald cap work. That's all makeup and blending. But this seam right across here, we thought, what are we killing ourselves? Keanu's has a huge beard, so his would tuck up underneath the beard. You barely saw it. But Alex's was a little lower. And we just, that was a planned effect where practical effects meet CGI. And all they did was, you know, move the little magic wands around.
That's cool.
I mean, they do more than that, but they blended in that one little scene there. But all the suits, you know, the muscles and all the bending, I mean, that's what we did with the suit. So I still believe in it. I think it in some way, I mean, I talked to Alex Winter afterwards, and he was like, I totally was happy to have all that weight on me, even though it was kind of straining on my back, because it allowed me to feel like I was heavier, like I had muscle, even though, you know, I didn't have much strength into holding these 30-pound suits up. But it just helped him, got him into character. And I think if you're just doing it normal, it would still look great. I'm sure CGI would be beautiful if you had, you know, $3 million to throw at just that one scene. They could have easily done it, but I like the fact that we can still do it. And again, we had to do, I'm getting good, on social media, at Yeager Effects, if you're out there doing Instagram. I'm getting a lot of good feedback. People are going, hey, I thought these the old ages would look bad, or I thought the muscle suits would look flawless, or whatever compliment I was getting, which was fantastic. It's great. I love social media because you don't have to wait, to go to a horror convention to get compliments from your fans. They can talk to you. I've been loving this for years, but anyway, so yeah, I mean that's the challenge is to make sure that we make our stuff as best as we can to compete with what's out there. Yeah. But I think again the combination for me works best. I mean, a lot of people call CGI like bubble gum. They say it's like bubble gum. Everything's soft and squishy and moves and kind of doesn't have a realistic look. It's getting better and better, obviously. It's getting phenomenal. Oh, yeah. And eventually, I think it'll surpass us and we'll be retired dinosaurs. But not yet. Yeah, not yet. And again, some people prefer it, so it's not dead yet.
There's no substitute for a good gory corpse. I mean, I know how weird that sounds, but you could probably relate. I mean, all the work you did on Bones, you can't do that stuff with CGI, so.
I mean, we had, on Bones, we did this for 12 years, this series. Did all the victims, we did animals, we did things, and we had 3 days. I mean, I think the longest I got 2 weeks one time to make a really elaborate fake head that I had to do that had to kind of, the top had to come off, and then Calvarian cut, which is that cut that they make when they remove the brain in an autopsy. They had, that had to come off, and there was a brain inside. And so it was a pretty elaborate head. And it gave me 2 weeks to do that. And thank God I had brain molds already in the back, and I had certain things that helped. But we had to punch all the hair. Same thing. We just had to do it in lightning speed. I mean, you couldn't do that with CGI every week. It would delay the process. You wouldn't get the TV shows out in time.
Finally, I'll let you go in a sec, but the question I have to ask, and I'm sure it's a tough one. What do you think the pinnacle of your career in terms of what effect or makeup design are you most proud of? I know it's probably like picking your favorite kid or something like that.
Well, it is hard. I mean, the things that come to mind, Face Off, certainly I liked it because the experience was fantastic. Everything ended up on screen. I mean, everything that we did, so many times things get cut. Bill and Ted, believe it or not, I think is going to be one that goes in the memory books too. Yeah. Creature-wise, I really enjoyed. I mean, Freddy's great. Chucky's fantastic. He's got to be that should be kind of my number one. But I had the most fun. That was almost like working at Mattel. There was so many people had input on what it should look like, and it had to be perfect. And there were so many stages. Yeah. Just even getting it okayed, it was tough. But the Crypt Keeper for Tales from the Crypt was so great because I was able to. Everybody involved, Joel Silver and most of the other executive producers were all directors. Bob Zemeckis, Hill, Dick Donner. So these guys trusted you like nobody. I mean, they just went, good. You show them something, they go, great. They wouldn't go, well, let's only just say they wouldn't pick it apart. Like you get picked apart by a lot of productions. And so I was able to sketch them out, go from a sketch to a sculpture, build him, mechanize him, go on set with him, direct him. I got to direct all the wraparounds, and then even the very first line that comes out of his mouth was mine. I had to do it on the fly right there because we wanted to change the line slightly, and so I'll do it. I did, you can tell it's not John Kassir, but I got to cast John Kassir too in my shop. Wow. Edition, so I got to do the whole thing, and then I went on to do 2 episodes. One got a Cable Ace nomination for directing, and so it was just it was at that time where you're soaring. The practical effects were still up there. CGI hadn't come in yet. Right. And I was just on top of the world. It just went all the way up. And then that was and then things changed. Things start to slow down. I started directing, and then I had some difficulty, with, Miramax, the Weinsteins.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to bring up Hellraiser.
I don't mind talking about it. It's Hellraiser bloodline. And it was just a tough, really tough. It was like one of the first. Dimension was a small company that they made for horror and horror franchises, and
it was kind of before Dimension really took off.
Yes, that was their first film. I think it was that one and another one they were doing at the same time. And it just was a tough, difficult time. Not directing wise, just dealing with certain people.
Yeah, sure.
It was just a bit of a nightmare. So, in the end, I ended up leaving the film because it was just, I finished it, but, I wasn't allowed to shoot any of Pinhead stuff. I wasn't allowed to. At one time, I was told to take away Pinhead's chains and hooks, and I said that's like taking Freddy's glove away.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I convinced them to keep that back in, but they weren't sure if it was going to be PG-13 or not.
Oh,
and
God.
So instead of letting me film it as an R-rated film, which it is, let me film it that way, and then you can cut out. They just said they wouldn't let me finish it. So my completed film had no scary scenes in it. That was an issue. So but then they sat back and judged it without these things. It was just it was a nutty nightmare. I felt that the people in charge, and there was only one person in charge, didn't understand filmmaking at all. Didn't understand how films were put together. Didn't know the difference between the producer and the director. The only thing this guy knew was that there was what the writer was, because that's obvious, but that's all he understood. He was really strangely not informed, had no background, in my opinion. So it was just a disaster. And then a huge ego, huge power, loved to be cruel to people, loved to hurt people, loved to, and so that was just a friggin' nightmare. And that kind of changed. And then CGI came in, but then I started doing more A pictures. That's when I did Face Off. I did Starship Troopers. I did adaptation. I started working with big stars, Conspiracy Theory, all these other movies that were fun to work on with big directors, Tony Scott, all these other guys. And so I kind of went back to do that. I still directed a little bit, still love directing, would love to still direct, but just kind of thought, I came out from Ohio to do this. This is what I did, and I was just thinking about this. One thing I'll say more before we stop is horror-wise, I've been able to work, on Pinhead. I directed him. I got to do Jason on Friday the 13th Part 4, Freddy, Chucky, the Crypt Keeper, if you want to, and Tiffany for that matter, Chucky and Tiffany. So like
all icons as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. I mean, to look back. I mean, anytime anyone does a chart and shows who's your favorite, all my characters are up there, and that's something to be really proud of. And that's pretty much a miracle from a kid who came from Ohio who had no way of knowing how to get in the business and was able to do that. And I got helped. I got helped by Greg Canham, Rick Baker, Stan Winston. I worked for all those guys. And the biggest one was Dick Smith, who really got me started. Oh, wow.
And you're amongst them in terms of how iconic all these images are. So it's been a thrill. And like I said, I think I told you before, I try not to geek out too much, but you're a name like that I've known for so long because I was a young, in the late 80s, I was just a young kid being warped by horror. And Tales from the Crypt was my favorite show. I loved Chucky. So you played a really big part in my my warping my brain. So thanks for that. And not just me, an entire generation of people.
As long as you didn't turn out to be a serial killer, I think it's okay.
I've got a great job. I'm able to talk to guys like you for a living now, so it's pretty cool. And one day I'm going to get to talk to you. I just want to do a deep dive into Tales from the Crypt one day because it's still I still go back to watch it. I don't think people appreciate how unique that show was in terms of the talent involved with it. It's just every episode had amazing people involved, and they're all doing this wonderfully sleazy, gross stuff, and it just seemed like a blast for everybody involved.
I mean, the first couple seasons I thought were really the best, and you got big guys like of course all the executive producers who are big directors.
Oh yeah.
But then it started attracting all these, Demi Moore did one. I mean, all these people started coming in and wanting to be a part because they could be goofy and scary and do things that they kind of wanted to do, but they couldn't do in their normal careers. And this is just a 30-minute little episode. They could be a vampire or something like that.
Yeah, and you had like Robert Zemeckis following up Forrest Gump with the Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's so awesome. So we'll talk about that some other time, but thank you so much for your time, Kevin. It's so cool. I want to live in your studio, but don't worry, I'm not flying anywhere yet.
Not now with the water leak that just happened to you.
Oh, that's a whole other horror story. And Bill and Ted 3 is out right now, and everybody should check it out because it's such a good time. And Kevin, thank you so much for your generous time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Kevin Yagher, everybody, the man.